What is going on, everybody? King Friday here. I am here at the JB&A NSM 2024 National Sales Meeting, and I'm here with my good friend Jason Perr from Perifery. How you doing?
Good, good, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, so we had a really great conversation all around Perifery and specifically what they're doing with AI not that long ago, and this is kind of this is the filmed version now. We didn't get to film the other one, so we're here to do a real one. So I want to start off with specifically, AI is a big, it's a big buzzword for everybody right now. And I personally feel like a lot of people are including that word, including some of the other, sort of terms that have to do with it in with their products, even if it doesn't really make sense, or even if it's not really, it might not actually be true artificial intelligence, but then there's large language models and different terms within AI. How would you describe what Perifery is doing with AI, and how do you feel about just sort of in general where AI is going, where it's headed?
Yeah, no, totally. So there's a lot of things that we're doing with AI right now, and there's a tremendous amount coming up in the roadmap. But the first and foremost thing we're doing is taking the kind of low-hanging fruit, right? We take the transcription that people have been generating transcriptions off of files in asset management systems and in general for a while, and we're taking that transcription and we're passing that to a large language model that either can be in the cloud or can be hosted locally, and then asking a bunch of questions against that transcription to generate metadata.
Wow.
And so what that looks like is we ask some really basic questions like, what would a good title for this be? Because if you don't ask that question, we have a lot of files historically where someone opens up and they have a file called PREP65 and what is this stuff?
Yeah.
No one understands what that is. So let's ask for a title. Then the next thing we want to do is say, okay, well, give us a summary about what this is. And so again, we make the prompt a little more specific of, give me a summary that's 500 characters or around 500 characters that describes the action going on in this actual video. And then we take it a step further by making it open so that customers can then take that and add their own prompts and assign them to their own fields. And it opens up a world of possibilities of things we might not even think of. Like we ask for keywords is a good sample that works for everyone. But then I thought about it the other day and said, well, language models are also great at translation, because historically, if we tried to translate things through AI, it was doing kind of a word-for-word text-based translation that just doesn't work.
You need the context.
Yeah, and the language model understands the content.
That's right.
So instead, you pass the whole thing into the language model and say, hey, can you give me a summary in French? Give me a summary in Spanish. And we see great results with it. So that's stuff that works today. Then, where we're going with that along the same lines is, what about content that doesn't have anyone talking? How do you get a summary of that? So leveraging vision models, we're able to actually look at an image and very easily have it tell us something about that image. But what's more fun is when we take that into the video world, we can say, hey, every 1 second, for example, let's take a sample, tell us what that is, and then compile those across the duration of a video and have it summarize all that together, and you end up with a visual summary of a video without anyone even talking.
That's incredible.
So that's stuff that we're doing that's all either available today with the basic transcription stuff or coming in the very, very near future with the other stuff that's already in testing. What I'm seeing in the landscape is people have talked about AI workflows and stuff for a while where it just kind of really meant automation.
Right, exactly.
Right? And there's a big difference between actual AI and just automation. And I think that the big challenge of automation historically was that we have these really complex systems where you had to leverage all these online services or do these different things that had many steps and were really complicated. AI is helping simplify a lot of that. And part of how it's doing it is through things like AI agents and different AI services that help kind of pull things together. So we're seeing a lot of great potential coming up in doing that. And then the other big thing that we're seeing is how in the community, the open source community is so active in this space.
Prolific.
It's crazy. Just 2 or 3 years ago, had you looked, you'd probably find 50,000 models, 60,000 models that were out there in the open source world, which sounds like a lot, but globally speaking, it's not that much. Last year, it went up to about 300,000 models.
Wow, that's amazing.
And this year, we're already over 420.
Sheesh.
So it's growing at a crazy rate, and all those things are open source. But the trick is, you have to have someone put it together into a workflow that makes sense.
That's the key, because with any, in my opinion, with any sort of AI application, as you said, it's like if you know, there are already so many different models that do very specific things really, really well. You kind of have to put we're not at artificial general intelligence at any point right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like maybe in the not too distant future that will happen. But at the moment, yes, it's taking multiple AI tools that are trained for very specific things to be able to turn it into a workflow is essential.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I think the key players are doing, is finding ways to find a good set of AI models.
Right.
And build a workflow around it. And that's one of the challenges in the space, quite frankly, is I've seen a lot of companies over the last year or two pop up where they do this one thing and they do it really well.
Yeah.
But it's really dangerous to get in bed with a company that's doing that, because next thing you know, 2 months later, there's 200 other open source alternatives.
Yeah.
And it's, okay, so what'd you invest all this money into doing this?
I keep seeing that even now, that there are a lot of, I mean, I can't remember the exact number. I mean, it was in the many hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, of lost investment.
Yeah.
Because they were so, I mean, it seemed overnight, as soon as OpenAI released ChatGPT, everybody was talking about AI, like really heavily, like just AI was in everybody's conversations, front of mind. Then they started bringing out all of these different types of applications using large language models, which made perfect sense. But then they would get all this angel investment money to be able to design this one specific thing that only did this one specific thing. They did all the branding around it, you know, gave it a cute little name where they took one of the letters off and everything, and it was perfect. But then no one even knows what it is, and it's this one pigeonholed thing that's also, you know, it's either a subscription or a call us, and it's like there is no workflow around it. So I appreciate that with Perifery AI, you know, bringing AI workflows, especially into video. And I have one question for you. So does Perifery's AI, does it also do the transcription itself? So from soup to nuts, you could essentially. That would cover all of it.
The really important thing is we can do 100% of it in an offline, completely secure environment.
Wow, that's huge.
So your content never has to leave your facility. You can be in a complete air-gapped environment. We can generate the transcription, we can send it to the language model, and we can be able to add all this rich metadata across millions and millions of assets. And we can do it actually very quickly, and it's very expandable. So you can start small, be able to scale up so that you can do millions of assets, and then be able to have, you know, depending on your hardware requirements and different things that you have, be able to scale it back to what your everyday kind of consumption is.
Is it possible to do it in real time?
So it depends on which one we're asking about and which thing, right? On the transcription side of things, definitely.
Okay.
So with transcription, it's interesting how these things work. One of the best open source transcription software is called Whisper, which was made by OpenAI.
Yep.
Back when they were a little more open.
Yeah.
Than they
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Yeah. But Whisper is a really good model, except for the fact that Whisper runs on CPU, which means it's slow. So there's another variant of Whisper made by another third party that is called Faster Whisper.
Are you serious? Oh, that's awesome.
Faster Whisper runs on GPU.
Oh, perfect.
And can actually do it in real time. And it's things like that. And that's the beauty of the open source community, is that, you know, I saw something a little while back last year where a company, MemGPT, put out this awesome product, and they were like, wow, you know, now we can actually have long-term memory associated with these chats. But at the time, there wasn't a way to actually run it against local models. And so it was just using OpenAI, which a lot of people do for development purposes because it makes it faster. Well, then you have kind of the open source community descends on it. You have all these developers start looking at it. And next thing you know, within a couple weeks, now you can plug in any open source model that you want.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing is not only does the open source community gravitate towards certain technologies and push them faster. But you also have really amazing things coming out of the big companies like Microsoft, who historically, most people never viewed as a very agile, nimble company, but yet they see or you hear about things happening with some of these other AI agent systems. And then Microsoft came out with their own, not even a month or so later, that's incredibly powerful. And so they're doing great things. And again, that's all open source.
Absolutely. So now if you wanted, so say I was, a filmmaker and an editing house, media and entertainment person that wanted to integrate Perifery AI, do I need Perifery software, or rather, do I need Perifery hardware on-prem or in the cloud somewhere? Do I need that to be able to add that, or can I do it a la carte? How does that work?
Yeah, totally. So you can do it either way. We have the ability to have AI Plus is something you can have purely in cloud, something we integrate into cloud asset management systems, so something like Iconic. So you can leverage that today without having any other Perifery hardware.
Wow.
When you get Perifery hardware and you start to add the ability of that same license for AI Plus with your Perifery hardware and with your storage, now you just get extra benefits of doing things like generating metadata that can actually live on the file objects themselves, not just in the MAM. That unlocks all sorts of different potential, because one of the challenges people have had historically with MAMs is that we search for all this metadata. It's all great for our marketing teams and for finding things. And then you grab that clip from your Premiere panel and drag it into your sequence or into your bin. And now you're back to that PR8 EP6 file that has nothing else on it, and it's all gone.
It's true.
So we feel that by adding the metadata directly to the file objects themselves, and then let that file object go into an Iconic or into another asset management system, which most of them can read embedded metadata, or even into Vision, which is another system that's actually the asset management system that was originally on the object matrix side that also works with all Perifery storage now. Then wherever that file goes, any MAM can pull that metadata out of it.
Wow.
So it's available in the MAM and on the file. So it works in both places. You just get a lot of extra benefits when you add the hardware into the mix.
That's amazing. Yeah, I like the fact that, so like, when I doing videography and stuff, depending on the lens that I use and the camera that I use, the settings I have, I can embed almost everything about whatever, if I took a photo, whatever that, was in there, the shutter speed I use, the ISO, all, my exposure compensation, everything, all of that is tied to the raw photo itself. And I love that, because I want to recreate that, that exact look. I can do that again, but then that's tied to the file. It's not tied to, Camera Raw and Photoshop or something like that. And then I take it to somebody else's place and it's all that is gone. I love that. I think that's a really great sort of expandable and a really good reason for people to get into the ecosystem of Perifery, to be able to say that it's tied to the file now, which you could not do. I don't think at all in any other way. So that's incredible.
No, totally. And there's another cool thing too. When we think about on-set kind of workflows, there's some interesting things we've had for a while with a product called Iris, which is, it's a smaller box, but it's running the same object storage in the same environment, just in a smaller package with a significant amount of storage capacity. But the other thing is we can actually run AI workflows on that box. And this is something that we're working on right now, figuring out how best to get the right GPU power and stuff like that. So not quite available, but coming. And when we're doing things like that, what we can do is send that out on set.
Nice.
So when you're capturing content, it can instantly go into something that, number one, is more secure and more backed up and protected, but number two, is starting to get enriched right away.
Wow.
And that way, even as you're, producing content throughout an entire day, you can actually have searchability across all that content right away on set while it's being created.
That's incredible.
There's cool workflows like that are coming down the pipe too.
Nice. So what would you say would be, are there Are there specific periphery hardware solutions that you would recommend for, specifically for media and entertainment to be able to take advantage of this? What are some of those, what are some of those products? What are the tiers, to be able to get into that ecosystem, would you say?
So really two primary different sides of the actual storage architecture. You have the object matrix side of Periphery, and then you have the swarm side. And the difference comes down to a couple key things. One is, do you need that storage to be mounted locally over something like an NFS so people can browse it like a file system? It's really important in certain workflows to have that ability, just for how people are used to interacting with the files, how you might have applications interacting with the files. In that case, that's where you have the object matrix side, because it has that ability to take these S3 objects and present them through an NFS share. You still have all this great erasure code, all this great redundancy and backup of it, but you just have that extra layer of being able to present it differently. You also have integration with Avid that makes your object matrix stuff play really well in an Avid ecosystem, and that's really valuable. Then on the swarm side is going to be much more about pure archive. So it's going to be an S3 target. It's going to be something that you might have a MAM involved, like an Iconic or something else that's feeding to it, or you might have other workflows to be able to push content up to it, or use our own interface or our own vision platform to push to it. But normally we're looking at kind of petabyte plus size libraries of where it starts to make more sense to get in. And it's really about having that long-term storage, knowing that it's very well protected, that you have very, good access across the board to all that content.
Potentially LTO replacement?
Exactly, and definitely LTO replacement. And when you're replacing LTO, what you're getting is, number one, much faster retrieval, much faster sending it off to backup, and all the richness of all this metadata, right? When we have AI Plus in the mix, AI Plus is normally looking at one or more directories or at the root directory with some rules that get applied to say, okay, all content that comes in, we're going to automatically go through and do the transcription, do the summarization, add this metadata, maybe do visual recognition, do some object recognition. And doing things with object recognition too, again, we try to do things more intelligent than just say, oh, well, there was a car in the scene, or there was this. No, we want to know there was a BMW 5 Series. There was, this specific purse for this company that's selling that, right? What is the specific object? And so those all get tied to the storage layer. So as soon as new content gets in, we identify it, we add all this metadata to it, and now it's going to be searchable wherever that file goes.
And do you think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that part of it, where you're that specific, where you can know exactly which BMW it was, you're saying that could that potentially run on-prem as well?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I can run it on my laptop right
wow.
there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And again, these are all things that, I'm not talking about anything that we haven't already done in the lab and have working.
Okay.
So what we're in the process of now is really productizing them, figuring out exactly what the right requirements are, what the minimum specs are, what the, most recommended specs are based on size and scale of any deployments and stuff like that, so we can be very prescriptive to the end customers to say, okay, here's the kind of performance you can expect. Here's the hardware you need. A lot of times these things need powerful GPUs to be able to actually handle things. So we try to make it a full package so that people can understand. But yeah, from a technical perspective, we've already gotten a tremendous amount working beyond what we've even been talking about. So
awesome. Well, I think this has been a really great conversation to just sort of get people into. I mean, we kind of ran the gamut of most of what you should know about Periphery, and especially how it works with AI Plus. I think it's a really exciting application for AI. I love your workflow approach with everything, and then the fact we were able to talk about Object Matrix and Swarm and what how you would be able to potentially use that in tandem with AI Plus, I think has been really, really great. So thank you so much for coming out. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And this has been King Friday at NSM for JB&A 2024. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact your sales representative over at JB&A, and they can definitely get you in touch with the right people over at Periphery to start getting you into this amazing ecosystem. So thank you so much for watching. Take care.